Hi, this is my critical evaluation of RPGs, role-playing games. In this video I'll be examining the different elements of gameplay from my chosen genre. My genre I'll be using for my assignment is an RPG. An RPG puts the user in the role of a character, typically in a fantasy or science fiction setting. The main aspect of any RPG is to tell a story and immerse the player in a game where players can level and explore. Many or all RPGs typically have quests or mission-based gameplay mechanic that gives your character a reason to explore a game and are more important for the story arc to progress. The game I chose as my main example is The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the fifth installment in the long-running RPGs by Bethesda. The game itself was released on November 11th, 2011 and was also both developed and published by Bethesda. Skyrim is a single-player, open-world action RPG that leads you to creating your own character that inhabits this high-fantasy open world. You can explore, fight, and uncover parts of stories, some of which involve your character directly and progresses you through the game. The character you make is your own and not predetermined, which gives you the freedom to create and sculpt your own play in this large fantasy RPG. Without going into too much detail, there are story arcs and many side quests that can overlap, which makes the game quite interesting. Skyrim can be played on multiple platforms like the Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and 4, and it can also be played on the PC. Skyrim attempts to give the player a realistic open-world game. The game consists of multiple story arcs that your player can completely ignore if he or she wants to. The game puts the player in a high fantasy world of Tamriel. That's main story pins the player a hero, or a Dragonborn. A hero with dragon's blood running through their veins who is prophesied to defeat the World Eater Alduin, a massive dragon that can only be defeated by the one hero. With hundreds of hours of quests, dungeons, and multiple large story arcs that the player is free to go off and do at any point in the game, it gives the player a large sense of freedom not many RPGs can compare to. Different mechanics that make an RPG and how Skyrim uses them. There are many different kinds of elements of gameplay that most RPGs follow, and in this section I plan on mentioning a few. Whether it be rules, objectives, or mechanics that most RPGs consist of. Typically in a role-playing game, you're normally able to move your character around, whether it be around an open world or even a linear-based level. But more typically in modern RPGs, you have combat mechanics, some kind of leveling system, and are able to customize the character the way that you want to. This normally defines a role-playing game, as you can take the role of a character that you design and be able to level and customize your character. Leveling. Leveling or character progression is a core mechanic of most RPGs. They allow you to progress and defeat better monsters, bad guys, or bosses. They all require the player's level to be at a certain point to even stand a chance. Leveling can also consist of player skills or perks that give you some kind of advantage if you use them often enough. This coincides with the player's playstyle and how they want to play the game. For example, in Skyrim, a player who uses magic as a weapon would be considered a mage or a wizard, or a player who enjoys sneaking up on enemies and defeating them from behind would be considered an assassin or a thief. The point I'm trying to make is that the impact of leveling in RPGs is what makes the game an RPG, and gives the player a role in the game that they feel more comfortable and immersed with. For example, in the game Fable 2, you're able to earn experience from either ranged weapons, melee weapons, and magic. You're limited to this specific leveling system and can't upgrade any other perks apart from how much damage you do. However, in Skyrim you can level up to 18 different classes from lockpicking to destruction magic and even the armor that you wear. Different kinds of character progression can vary among RPGs. Different stats a player is more likely to increase could be their health, agility, endurance, strength, mana, and many others among role-playing games. Typically in Skyrim you have health, stamina, and mana as your main stats, and then many different perks that you can level up while using them more often. The main mechanic that controls how your character would level up is XP, or experience, typically gained from killing an enemy or by using a perk often enough. If the player has enough experience, they gain a level and improves your character in some sort of way. Combat. Combat in an RPG is another mechanic that most RPGs use that allows a player to interact with the world, normally by defeating enemies and giving them some kind of experience. In Skyrim, the combat system follows a real-time system with free movement and consists of either a simple hit-or-miss attack, with only a single variation, which is the power attack. That's with melee weapons, while a simple hold-and-shoot mechanic is used for long-range weapons. However, combat systems can vary throughout different RPGs, similar to turn-based combat in most Final Fantasy games. The main mechanic normally consists of some way of attacking with health bars for both you and the enemy you are facing. The impact of combat in RPGs is huge and can be the difference between an immersive battle or a strategic turn-based game. Especially in Skyrim, you have the ability to fight with any weapon and move freely while in combat, and you have the ability to run away even. However, in games like Final Fantasy, where you have a party of characters, normally with multiple roles and classes, where you as the player have to defeat an enemy. Similarly, in both games, both have some sort of objective, whether it be you completing a mission or a quest. Combat also coincides with the challenge, risk, and reward rule that mostly every game as well as RPGs use to make a good game. The idea behind it is to challenge the player and give them a reward for completing it, while avoiding the potential to fail. Skyrim uses this in many elements of its game, with challenges like puzzles in a dungeon to open the door and get a reward. Skyrim also utilizes the risk and reward by giving the player dungeons to raid or side quests that are difficult, but it offers the player a reward for completing it. Game style elements. Skyrim is a three-dimensional game where the game is rendered using real-time graphics that can change as fast as your frames per second in the game. This gives the player a simulated 3D world to roam and explore in. The game also allows the user to change from first to third-person views from the avatar or player. Skyrim attempts to simulate a realistic-looking world for the player to explore in, and also has some cinematic scenes where the game fixes your camera to the player's position to give a better idea of the event that is unfolding. The game also provides feedback to the player when they are hurt by showing a slightly red-tinted screen telling the player they are in danger. The game also provides feedback by using the rumbler function on the controller, and the screen vibrates when the player is facing a dragon and it lands. This gives the player a sense of realism when the ground shakes. The perspective. A good RPG will attempt to immerse the audience in its ability to tell a story. This is much better perceived if the user is in a first-person perspective as you are in the RPG Skyrim. Skyrim gives the user the freely choose either a third or first-person perspective, but it always has the default set to a first-person perspective. While in first person, it puts the audience in the shoes of the character and lets you see from their perspective. This is ideal if the audience wants to be immersed in the gameplay. The impact of perspective is huge for a role-playing game. It's meant to immerse the player in its game world so the player can really get into the role of the character they are playing. Hence, RPG, role-playing game. Skyrim does this well as it gives both the option of third and first-person perspective. Other RPGs normally stick to a single unchangeable perspective like Witcher 3, where the player is stuck in a third person. Skyrim attempts to give a realistic experience to immerse the player and give the player a better looking game. When it comes to RPGs, the main aspect that is most apparent is the fact that they attempt to give the player a sense of realism. One way they attempt to do this is through a realistic style like Skyrim. Not all games follow this rule, however. Games like Borderlands 2, which uses a cartoon-like style, but can still give the player a role-playing story to play in. The interaction model also is important to creating an RPG, where the player can roam around the huge open world. It does this with an avatar interaction model that gives the player the control over the game entity to interact with the world. The impact of interaction models in RPGs can be considered a huge mechanic when it comes to telling a story and creating your game. Although the avatar interaction model is most common among role-playing games, other games do it differently, like Mud, a text-based role-playing game in which you can type in commands and the console will do them for you, while you go through a role-playing game. This has been my critical evaluation of RPGs. Thank you for watching.